Am I on? Can you check if I'm on? But it says I am on my own phone here. Are you on? No, I'm doing it on my personal profile. So stay tuned on it, okay? Hello, guys. I know I am on now. I know I'm live. So it's good to see you all today. Just 1 minute and I'll be able to start straight away. So like I said last time, maybe doing this for quite a number of times would help in understanding how this all works. So thanks for joining me. And I'm going to, so I need to see what screen we are on. So if you bear with me a second, I need to be sure we are on the right screen. And then right. And I'm going to, so. Right, guys, I think I'm getting used to how this works. And I hope there is no echoey sound today. Please let me know if there is any echoing sound, please. Okay, so I am going to carry on. Thanks for joining me. I can see some people who have joined. Okay, thanks, guys. Today we're going to be talking about powers in maths. Powers in maths. I would like us to quickly check out on what we did last time, just like a recall. Okay, so what we want to do is to try and remember what we had done last week. So last week, I'm sure we did talk about reciprocals and fractions. And if you have your notebook with you and pen, it would be great to write these questions down to just remember what we done in the last lesson. So please, if you have your pen and paper or your pen and book, it will be very great to have you write this recall lesson down. Last lesson, we talked about reciprocals and fractions. And now what can be multiplied by 0.2 to get 1? There should be a question mark there. So what can be multiplied by that to get 1? If you remembered, it would be great to see that you write the answers in the section, in the comment section. But if you can't remember, we're going to talk about it quickly. So we know that 0.2 as a fraction is, I'll write it here, 2/10. And we said last time that because it's one decimal place, we're going to have it as 2/10. Remember, I used the rhyme we used to have in when I was younger, and I did something like this, and I wrote tenths and so on. So if I was to write 0.2, I'll write 0.2. So this 2/10 is what 0.2 is as a fraction. However, the question is what can be multiplied by 0.2 to get 1? So we know that if we turn this upside down and we multiply it, we should get, how do you multiply fractions? You multiply the top and you multiply the bottom, remember? So you multiply I call it bottom, but it should be denominator. And so you have 2 times 10, which is 20, 10 times 2, which is 20. Now this is the same thing as saying 20 divided by 20, or how many lots of 20 in 20, which is 1. So what can be multiplied by 0.2 to get 1? The answer will be 10/2, which is the same thing as 5. So that will be the answer to that question. I hope you remember that. I hope you now remember that because we did the reciprocal of 2/10, we were able to know that the reciprocal times the number we were given, or the fraction, when we multiply it together, you get 1. Okay, the second question says, what is the reciprocal of 0.2? We basically have answered that question in question 1. So the reciprocal of 0.2 will be 10/2, which is the same thing as 5. All right, because you know why. Now, what is the multiplicative inverse of 5/6? Now, I deliberately brought this word in so that you can know that multiplicative inverse is the same thing as reciprocal. So it's saying, what is the reciprocal of 5/6? The answer will be 6/5. Now, you can leave your answer like that unless you were told to simplify it into the lowest term. You will get your full marks in GCSE exams if you write 6/5. If it says you should simplify your answer in the simplest form, then you have to simplify this by saying how many lots of 5 in 6. And we know there's only one lot of 5 in 6, so you write a big one, and there would be one more to get to 6 from 5. So that's the remainder on top, and you keep that bottom number. So we also talked last week about changing mixed numbers into improper fraction and changing improper fraction into mixed numbers. So if you missed that lesson, please go to my YouTube channel on Maths Teacher Bytes to remember how to do it, okay? And the lesson for that is called Reciprocals and Fractions on the YouTube channel. Now, today we are going to be talking about something very close to what we done last week. So if I quickly just bring the next slide up, let's annotate that to pick up what we want. So I'm just gonna select what we have for today, or just go down. Hopefully. The annotate button sometimes takes a while to pick up, but hopefully we get it done. I think it's stuck, but yeah, we'll get it done. Okay, so I'm going to discard all the write-ups so that we can see clearly. Pardon me, remember what I said last time. It will take quite some time, but we'll get there. Okay, so today we're gonna be talking about powers, and we're gonna be using the maths language or keywords. powers, exponents or indices, common exponents. Let's move this out of the way. So what is powers? I have written like a mini definition here so that we won't get confused. So the result of a base number to a given number of exponents or index, what does that really mean? So if I write something like this, let's go back to annotate again. And then we want a yellow color. So if I was to write something like 2 to the power 3, yeah. Now, even though I'm saying 2 to the power 3, the right way I should have said this is 2 raised to the exponent of 3. That's the way I should have said it. And whatever answer I get becomes the power. But we are so used to saying 2 raised to power 3 or 2 raised to the 3rd power. It's fine. We just need to know what it really means. So in this case, the result of your base number, this big number here is called the base number. And the 3 there, the small number there, is called the exponent, okay? So you need to remember that. So when a base number is raised to a given exponent, you would have what we call the power. Now, what does 2 cubed means, or 2 raised to power 3 or 2 to the 3rd power, since that's what we know it as now? You know that this means 2 times 2 times 2, and that would mean 8, because 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. Please don't do the mistake of thinking 2 to the power 3 is 2 times 3. No, it's not. It's 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And so that's what power is. The 8 is the power in this case. Now, there are some common powers that we have that we can talk about. We also have something like 3 squared, for example. This is 3 times 3, yeah, and that is 9. Now, this is not the same thing as 3 squared, please. It is 3 times 3, which is 9. The 9 is the power, but then if you want to say this, you say 3 to the power 2 or 3 to the 2nd power. However, when you have all this, there is something we need to know, and that's where I'm going to go to right now. So let's click on the mouse. I think that's what we clicked on last time, and let's clear our drawings. Okay, so we know what powers are now. So now that we know what powers are, I'm just going to just bear with me a second, guys, please. Okay. We now know what the base number is as well. We know what the base, now the letter, we can also have a letter raised to a power. What this simply means is A times A times A, okay? Which is A cubed. Now, it doesn't have to be just numbers. It can be letters and it can be numbers. It's just known as the base, this big number here. However, it will make sense to talk about the negative bases. So say, for example, I'm going to write on here, you have something like -2 all cubed. What this means is -2 times -2 times -2, because it's all in the bracket. Now we know 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. However, a negative times a negative will give you a positive, and a positive times a negative will give you a negative. So this will give you a -8. All right. So this is something you need to remember, that when you're dealing with the bases, what you're doing is you're pretty much multiplying everything. Now I'm sticking to cubed and square for now, but your exponents can be more than that. All right. So if I go back now, and let's go down to this bit here. We're going to be answering some of the GCSE exam questions. Remember, the purpose of the Facebook Live math lessons is more or less helping us to answer questions in GCSE exams. And that's why I said it's geared towards the year 10 students. However, other years can join because they need to learn. So I might not be breaking it down to the very basic level, but you should know that you will need it even if you are in the primary school. So it's important that we all listen and not feel, oh, that it's just meant for year 10. It's actually meant for all year groups. Okay, so we are going to now do these exam questions. Match each of the following. 2 cubed. Where would 2 cubed be? Obviously, it's going to be down here. So that's how we match that. 5 to the power 4. That means 5 times 5 times 5. So we match that there. Please, you can try these questions on your own at home as you're watching me. And that's for the students. And parents could check if their children actually got the answers right, same as mine. 8 squared would mean 8 times 8. So these are typical GCSE exam questions. And 3 squared will be 3 times 3, which we've done before. And 4 to the power 5 or 4 to the 5th power will be 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. I mean, 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. And of course, 2 to the power 8 will be 2 times 2 times 2 in 8 places like that, okay? Now, remember, 2 to the power 8 is not the same thing as 2 times 8. It's not 16. It's the whole lot here, okay? So pretty much we've done all that, and that is how your answers should look like. Now I'm going to go to the next one and clear our drawings, where it says common exponents, their inverse operations, roots, and their reciprocals. Now this is very important. We've talked about something like, we've talked about, let's get the annotation done again. So we've talked about 2 cubed, for example. We said 2 cubed is 8. Now, if I was to ask you to give me the inverse operation of that, what it then means is it's saying the cube root of 8. So if I put 3 there and I put 8 there, the cube root of 8 is 2. So this is the inverse operation for this power here, okay? So if I say what is 2 squared, we know 2 squared is 4 because it's 2 times 2. However, the inverse operation of this exponent and the base number is, if I was to do this, I'm going to do what's the square root of 4. Now, I don't need to put this 2 here, but whether I put it or not, if there's no number there, it shows it's just the square root and your answer will be 2. Now, talking about common exponents like the cube number and the square number is very important, because then you can see how the inverse operations for this base number and exponent works. So you can clearly see we had the 2 there, and you can clearly see we also had the 2 there. So that's the root. We call it the square root. That is the inverse operation for your base number and your exponent, okay? However, if you have something like, let's clear that drawing. I hope you've written some of those notes down. If I clear that drawing, if you have something like this, 4 squared. We know 4 squared is 4 times 4, and we know it's 16, guys. Yeah. If I want the reciprocal, remember last lesson that we done? If I want the reciprocal of 4 squared, what did I say last week? I said it would mean 1 divided by 4 squared. That is the reciprocal of 4 squared. So if I write that down, and if you're taking notes, please write that down as well. So this is the reciprocal of 4 squared, and this will be the same thing as 1 over 16. So if you are asked in GCSE, what is the reciprocal of 4 squared, you know it is 1 divided by 4 squared, which is 1 over 16. Now, if I don't want to write it this way, and let's clear this, because we need to write reciprocal here so that we don't confuse. So reciprocal, I think I should clear that. So reciprocal, this is the note you should rather take. Reciprocal of 4 squared is 1 over 16, and you know why. Reciprocal means 1 divided by the number you're given, okay? Now, if I don't want to write it this way, the reciprocal of 4 squared will be written as 4 to the power negative 2. And that's what we mean by negative exponents. So negative exponent is 4 to the power negative 2, for example, is the same thing as 1 over 16. Okay, and this is the reciprocal for 4 squared. So this is the note you should have. Now, remember, when you're given this in exams, you should be able to work it out easily. Once you know what the reciprocal is, 1 divided by the number you're given, then you would know that you can write it as a negative exponent. And that's what that, we're going to do one more example. If I write 3 cubed, and I know this is 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27, the reciprocal of 3 cubed is 1 over 27. And you know why it's that. But if I don't want to write it that way, I could just say 3 to the power negative 3 equals 1 over 27. So that's how it should be. All right, so please take that note. I'm going to go on to the next bit here. And then we can try some exam questions. I'm going to clear all drawings. So let's do this quickly. 4 to the negative 2, we already done that. Hopefully you remember how to do it. So if I get my annotations back. So these are GCSE past questions. What's the reciprocal of 4 squared? You know, it's 1 over 16. So if I don't want to write it that way, I write it as a negative power. So your answer here will be 1 over 16. This is the answer to that. Okay, please don't forget. Now, when I was talking about square roots and the square numbers, you should realize that square root of 4, for example, I told you I could put the 2 there, and it doesn't matter if I don't put the 2 there. If I don't put anything there, it means it's a square root. If the square root of 4 is 2, yeah, I could decide to write this square root as 4 to the power half. 4 to the power half is not the same thing as 4.5. So if we use a different colored pen there so that you can see that clearly, 4 to the power half is 2. It's just saying square root of 4. That's what it means. So the same thing here, the square root of 36 is what 2 same numbers can you multiply to get 36? Of course, your answer will be 6, because this is basically saying the square root of 36. So remember, this here is square root when it's raised to the exponent of half. Here is another negative exponent. You know what this means. You know it means 1 over 5 cubed. Yeah? This is what this means, which is the same thing as 1 over 125. They want you to write your answer as a fraction. So if you write it this way, it's correct. If you write it this way, it's correct. Both of them are correct, because 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5. Now, this is the bit I need to share with us all. Any number raised to power 0 is 1. So remember that. If I say 1,000 to the power 0, it is 1. Anything to the power 0 is 1 when it comes to exponents and powers. Now, if you remember that this exponent of half is square root, what do you think this exponent of a third would mean? It means the cube root. Apart from 2, which we don't need to write in the square root, we need to write the cube root and any other powers. It's just the 2 one we don't tend to write. So here it means the cube root of 1,000. So the cube root of 1,000 means what same number can I multiply by itself 3 times to give me 1,000? Of course, it's going to be 10. So your answer here will be 10, because 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So I'm going to quickly round up now, because we have just 3 more minutes, and I'm going to add like 2 minutes to it. So we've talked about everything I need to talk about. However, the last bit we want to talk about, let's clear that drawing, is the laws of indices. Sometimes people call it the exponent laws. Remember, the number you have Let's quickly choose our annotation again. So remember that when we have something like 2 cubed, yeah, we said this big one is called the base number, and we said this one was the exponent. So you can call it exponent for the small one, or you can call it index. 1 is index. When it's more than 1, it's indices. Yeah. So laws of indices states that when you have something like this, 2 same base numbers, they have to be the same, okay, for you to be able to apply the laws of indices or exponent laws. So if I put that there, for example, these big numbers are the same. So the base numbers are the same. This law would apply. When you're multiplying same base numbers, you add the powers. So the answer here will be 2 to the power 7. If I do 5 to the power 3 times 5 to the power, just let's leave it like that. This 5 is raised to power 1, even though you're not seeing it. So you need to know that this will be 5 to the power 4 when you add the exponents. Yeah, even though you're not seeing the 1, even though they don't put it, there's a 1 there. Okay, how about if we want to divide? If I have 5 cubed divided by 5 to the power 2, guys, when you're dividing, you need to take away the powers. When you're adding, you add the powers. When you're dividing, you take away the powers. So that is 5 to the power 1, or which is the same thing as 5. Sorry, that's a 1. Because 3 take away 2 is 1. So 5 to the power 1 is the same thing as 5. All right. So if I clear that diagram and write 5 to the power 3 divided by 5 to the power 3. Now, because they are same base numbers, I can apply the laws of indices. So when you're dividing, you take away the powers. So you write your big 5 again. 3 take away 3 is 0. Now remember, anything to the power 0 is 1. So your final answer should be a 1 because it's 5 to the power 0. Okay, so we're quickly going to try just the exam questions now, and we will call it a day. Thanks for staying with me. So we have this bit here, which is exam questions. This is a real exam question here. So we're going to quickly answer the questions, and then we will summarize everything we've done in today's lesson. Come on now. Okay, so I am going to quickly go over these questions with us, and we should be pretty, we should round up. Okay, so, okay, 5 cubed times m to the power 5 times m to the power 3 would give us m to the power 8. Remember, when you're multiplying, you add the powers. M to the power 8 divided by m to the power 2 will be m to the power 6. Remember, the base numbers doesn't have to be numbers. It could be base letters. Remember, I said that as well. And here is the last laws of indices. When you have the bracket is the times, okay? So it will be m to the power 6. You times when is the bracket. You add when is the times. You add the indices when you're timesing. You take away the indices when you're dividing, and you times the indices when there is a bracket. And of course, this last one here, m9 times m1 is m to the power 10 over m5. Now the over is divide. So m10 divided by m5 would be m10 minus m5 will be m exponent 10, take away the exponent 5. So your final answer will be m5. So because you do 10 take away 5 when you're dividing, and you keep your base number. So thanks for staying with me. That calls it a day for today. But to round up what we've done, please listen and watch what we have done. I'm going to clear all the stuff we've done there. So today's math language or keywords that we've used are, we've used the word powers. So we've used the word powers. We know what that means. When a base number is raised to an exponent, your result is the the power. We've used the word exponent, which is exactly the same as index for one or indices for many. And we also know that the common exponents, let's take this off the way, common exponents like the square numbers and your cube numbers, okay? We've talked about base and base number, and we said it could also be base letter, as you can see in most of the GCSE questions. We've talked about negative bases, which is something like -2 cubed that we talked about, where you have to carry the whole thing there. We've talked about reciprocal, just like last week's lesson, where you have something like 4 squared. Reciprocal will be 1/16, which is the same thing as 4 to the power -2. We've talked about caret symbol on calculator. We didn't talk about it, but if you're using a calculator to do your powers, your caret symbol is important, and this is how it looks. So this is how you find it on the calculator. It looks like this. You press, say you wanted 2 cubed, yeah? You press 2 on the calculator, you press 2 on the calculator, and then you press your caret sign on the calculator and press 3. You press your enter and you will get your answer as 8 on your calculator. Now, repeated multiplication versus repeated addition. We did not, if you do 2 times 3, you know it's 6, isn't it? That is repeated addition because you do 3 lots of 2 or 2 lots of 3. But when it comes to something like 2 cubed, please, it's repeated multiplication, which is 2 times 2 times 2. That is repeated multiplication, which is 8. While this one is repeated addition, you know, when you do 2 lots of 3 or 3 lots of 2, you know, it will give you the same answer as 6. But this is different. You have to do repeated multiplication for your powers. And of course, we've talked about the loss of indices, and we've talked about negative exponents like this, yeah? And you know this is 1/16 because it's the reciprocal of 4 squared. Thank you for attending this session, and hopefully we'll get to see you next week, same time, for another lesson. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye. Before I go, please don't forget this video will be on my Maths Teacher Bytes channel. And you can actually go there and pause the lesson as you watch it on Maths Teacher Bytes channel to take notes and anything you might want to do. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on the Maths Teacher Bytes channel on YouTube. Click like and share our videos if you find them useful. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.